You know, there are a lot of US influencers or Airbnb model experts who would come on your profile and be like, hey, you know what? You go from I was broke one time, now I make $1 million, I have 17 properties, I have 25 properties, right? And it's a thing. So I want to know, what is the business opportunity with Airbnb to host?
We have seen people build multi-crore businesses in terms of, doing this.
How are Indian travelers different from American travelers?
Some of the traits are always there. The value for money trait will always be there, right?
What are the top things which we can learn from a US-based startup?
Not all startups have to be on the headlines. Not all, like somebody creating a small business of 10 people, bringing impact in a small, city is also success.
Yeah.
So I think celebrating that success also is very important, right?
Welcome to Figuring Out. Before we go forward, you know the drill. 85% of the people who watch us do not subscribe us. So please subscribe us, because the more you subscribe, the bigger our channel gets. And the bigger our channel gets, the better the guests we will be able to get it for you and ask them the questions that you want us to ask, so that your Indian dream becomes possible much faster than you can imagine. Today's show is with the country head of Airbnb. We've spoken about how Airbnb is a crazy opportunity for you and me to start caring about and start making money, a lot of money as a side income, because Airbnb is not only a startup that helps you stay at homes apart from your own home, but is also a startup which is helping every individual around the world start their rental income on the side and become millionaires. We've talked about examples of people in India जो ये कर रहे हैं. Also, if you want to know the best and the most secret places where Airbnb operates, which is really beautiful, serene, peace and unusual in its own kind, ये सारी places Airbnb कहाँ पर, कौन सी city में, कौन सी country में available है, इन सब के बारे में हमने बात करी है. And before you could watch further, please go subscribe Raj Shamani Clips, Raj Shamani Shorts channel for understanding the leaders of today in shorter period of time, because this podcast might be really long for you, so you can understand all of these lessons in just short amount of time. Enjoy today's show. It'll be fun. Let's go dive into Airbnb business, because I am I'll give you two reasons why I'm interested in it. One, I'm a big fan of Airbnb. Every time I travel abroad a lot.
Thank you.
I started traveling when I was 17.
Awesome.
And I have been around the world in 30, 40 countries. And I think in 95% of them, I stay in Airbnbs.
Awesome.
Right?
We just need to get the next 5%, the last one also. But would love to know what attracts you towards Airbnb.
So to me, in the beginning, it was fancy places.
Fancy, unique places.
Unique places. Yeah. To me, that was like first. I think for the first, from 17 to 20, for 3 years, it was the price.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
affordability.
It was affordability, because I would remember the first years, when you start traveling, you go to major cities. Like I went to New York, I went to Vienna.
Yeah.
Right? These are cities which are expensive as hell.
True.
So in New York, I know even a decent hotel would cost me way more than Airbnb.
Sure.
So that's why I booked an Airbnb. And in the beginning, I remember I stayed with a family which had 3 rooms, and I took 1 room from them. Like it was like a shared.
The core model of Airbnb.
The core model of Airbnb, right? And then they gave me my only bad review is their review.
Okay. What did you do?
So they gave me I'm from India. I didn't know that you're not. This is my first trip to US.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you're not supposed to play music at night.
Oh, okay.
I was playing, and I was jet lagged. I'm playing music in the middle of the night and trying to work. Yeah. And I was like a 19, I guess.
Yeah.
So 19-year-old me in an apartment in New York. It's damn silent. Yeah. This is winters.
Okay.
और मैं बढ़िया laptop पे गाने सुन रहा, right? So then they just put it off. ठीक है.
You learned
it hard way, right? Then, so this was the first 3 years.
Sure.
Then I got used to it. So I was like, okay, let me do this. Then I started finding like cuter places, better places, well done, more
places
like,
with character.
Right? Like it has more fun. Then it became, I can have friends over. Like in hotels and like there's so many restrictions and things, right? When you are going, so I used to go every time to some kind of conference. So this is what I do. Every year, I go to one conference around the world.
Okay.
And I treat that conference learning experience as my vacation. So I only take one.
Great.
So when you're with you're in a conference where there are 500 people. You
you meet
tend
new
to meet
people.
like 10, 12 people
Sure.
and you want them over. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let me take an Airbnb.
Yeah.
So it started
Okay.
like that, right?
Nice.
And now it has become, I book those experiences through Airbnb.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I remember last time I went to New York, I took a photo walk.
Okay.
So this was like, okay, every time I come to New York, I'm alone.
Yeah.
I don't know who to take pictures.
Sure. So
Like
you do
there
it
was
with
an
that.
option, ki photo walk kar lo.
Huh.
And I remember it was like $60.
Yeah.
Like
But you
4,000
go to the
rupees.
iconic places
हाँ,
in New York.
4,000.
Yeah.
वही तुम्हें जो फोटोग्राफर है
हाँ.
वही तुम्हें हर जगह लेके जाएगा.
I know.
वो तुम्हें ब्रुकलिन ब्रिज दिखाएगा, वो तुम्हें स्ट्रीट्स पे लेके जाएगा, वो
Yeah.
तुम्हें सोहो लेके
Yeah.
जाएगा. He knows spots and they'll click your picture.
Thank you.
And I use these pictures even today.
That's awesome, right? Yeah.
So these become like reason. And just this month, from 4th to 14th, I was in Colombia, Cartagena.
Wow.
And I stayed in middle of the town in an Airbnb, which had a panoramic view in
That's
the city.
awesome.
So I'm like a huge Airbnb buff.
Awesome.
And not
Good to
only
know
around the
that.
world, I've
Yeah.
stayed there,
Yeah.
like stayed in Airbnb in India as well.
Yeah.
Like
Awesome.
a lot of it, right?
So you know the genesis of Airbnb, how did it start? So because you talked about conference and you going on a conference, right? So let me just zoom out, give you a very short version of how Airbnb started. So in 2007, Joe and Brian, they're friends. They went to the same design school, so RISD, right? And they're staying together and they're trying to figure out what to do with their lives and, kind of figure out the next thing that they want to work on. And their landlord increases the rent, right? So suddenly these guys are unemployed. They cannot make the rent. And so they have to come up with an idea to pay the rent. So Joe comes up with the idea that, okay, they have khali space in the house. And what if they bring some air beds, inflate them, and start renting those out to people coming into the city? As luck would have it, there was a design conference in San Francisco at that point of time. And the entire hotel, inventory was sold out. So there was no space for people to come and stay. So they thought it's a good opportunity. People still coming to the city. They want a place to stay. And we should give them a tour of the city in our way. We are locals here, right? And stuff like that. So they ended up putting 3 air beds in the middle of their living room. And they put a small website out and said, you can come and stay with us. You pay this and we'll take you around and stuff like that. 3 people ended up signing for that offer, right? 2 of them, were from the US. And there was this one Indian guy, Amol, from Maharashtra, who was visiting the design conference and he decided to stay with them. These first 3 guests was the start of Airbnb. So India has been associated with the genesis of Airbnb when the design conference was happening, right? And because they inflated air beds and they also said, we'll take people around, it became air bed and breakfast, and which became Airbnb, right? So what started there in 2007 is now in over 220 plus countries and regions, right? And millions of listings and hosts.
220 countries.
220 countries and regions, yes.
They are in more countries than UN.
And I know you've spoken at the UN Assembly, right? But yeah, so that's how it started, right? And a need first that, okay, people would look for spaces, be a creative idea to kind of say, why can't we do this? And more importantly, when I look back at that snippet, they had put some videos out there, right? At that time, they would not even know that, what are they building? The only thing that comes out of this is, yes, people had a great time staying with them, but what they remember the most is how Brian and Joe treated them, how they took them to the city, how they showed the best places, how Amol, an Indian guest, was able to see San Francisco from the lens of a local, which transformed his entire travel experience. And today, if you look at Airbnb, it's one thing is all about the unique places that you go and stay, like you talked about, right? And we are the world's largest discoverable engine in terms of unique places. And we make it easier for people to kind of now explore and discover these places through our product inventions like categories, etc. But at the core of it is the people-powered hospitality, right? The people-to-people connection. And I think we've always said this that the magic is in the people. So you will always remember your trip based on the people you met, right? Based on the experiences you've had. And I think that is where Airbnb becomes a very, very important kind of a platform, because it fosters connection.
Yeah.
And especially in today's time when people are kind of drifting apart, getting people together, connection is very important. And I think that for me was a very, very powerful story.
To me, I'm a big time customer. So yeah, so that was one reason, because I am a customer and I love going to Airbnbs because they have cool places. The second reason I want to know more about Airbnb business, because I'm tired of seeing these reels where these US, there are a lot of US influencers or real estate experts or Airbnb model experts who would come on your profile and be like, hey, you know what? Become a host on Airbnb and you can you go from, I was broke one time, now I make $1 million, I have 17 properties, I have 25 properties, right? And it's a thing. And surprisingly, the other fact I'll tell you, recently, I was in Colombia, I just told you. I met random people at a mud volcano. We did a crazy experience, right? There was a guy who was in real estate and there was like one other random girl. For 30 minutes, the guy was just teaching this girl that how she can host on Airbnb.
Okay.
This is completely random, on a random island, 2 people from different states, different places, and nobody knew each other. And to me, that made me, like, that gave me sense of realization कि कुछ तो हो रहा है boss. क्योंकि she is 32 and in US now her dream is not to get a house. Her dream is to keep living on rent, but to get a house in her own home state where she could host an Airbnb and get that extra rent and keep living. So, just this conversation when it becomes कि random strangers के साथ ये conversation होती है and then they want to do this there. The dreams all of a sudden has shifted from how do I have an active home to turn this home into a passive income. So that was second reason which I want to know this. And the third and the primary is I used to come to Bombay and live in Airbnbs. To one Airbnb, and that I don't want to take the name of the guy, but that guy went from like having one small house, like 1 BHK. Now he owns like 20 properties in Bombay and 20 properties in Goa.
Wow.
And to me, that's like, ye kya hua hai? Like 4 or 5 years and now. And another fascinating thing is he doesn't own anything. So he takes it from people, runs the management and does it on Airbnb. So to me, all of these like, kuch to ho raha hai, kuch ho raha hai. So I want to know what is the business opportunity with Airbnb to host. And how does this work?
So 2 things are happening, and I think things vary country to country, different countries at a very different level in terms of awareness of the platform, tourism, footfall, etc. So very difficult to generalize, but I'll still explain to you what's happening. 2 things are happening. One, digital penetration has led to more people wanting to leverage technology to earn a livelihood. It's so easy today, right? For example, you look at D2C brands. Now, if I were to look at ancillary view, distribution is easy now, right? So you have to create a great product. Earlier, people would spend decades to build distribution networks, and that was their moat, right? But today you have an Amazon, you have a Myntra, you have, other places where you can put and you're good at that, you'll be able to reach a very different level of customers. And so as people have got used to using the phone or digital, they're looking at new ways to kind of earn money. And I think that is one. So the more digital penetration we've had, it's creating those opportunities and awareness at that level. The other thing which I talked about earlier is many people are now looking beyond the traditional experience of staying in a traditional form of hospitality, whether it's a service apartment, whether it's a hotel, right? Many people are looking for unique places. Like you said, you're looking for unique spaces. Many people are looking for spaces where there is more value in terms of bigger space, more control over that space. You want to bring friends over. You want to spend time with family, So the travel behavior is changing. And the third piece is a lot of people are valuing the experience more than the product, right? And so the experiential stay where you stay in a farmhouse or you stay with a pool villa, you're able to spend some time with your family in the pool, then you go cook, together in a kitchen and then bring friends over and have a great dinner over the weekend, right? So all of this is leading to more demand, right? So on one hand, you have demand. On the other hand, you have awareness and digital penetration. So it's creating a lot more curiosity for people to understand, okay, how does this work? The other thing that is happening is a lot of people have traveled from India overseas and stayed in Airbnbs. Maybe you also had a great experience staying in an Airbnb globally. They go there, they have a great experience. They see, okay, this is easy to do. They come back and they say, I also can do it. Mere paas bhi space pada hai. India also has and there are all kinds of people, right? So people find this as an opportunity for the primary space. Ki mere 3 bedroom hai, 1 bedroom mein dal sakta hu Airbnb pe. And there are features, there are, things that whatever they need to know about in terms of responsible hosting and protections, etc. So they'll do that, right? Some people also have, so India is also big on investment homes, right? So people after a certain stage of life buy another home as an investment. So a lot of people have started seeing that, okay, maybe this is a better way. If I don't want to host in my primary home, I can do this in my secondary home, right? And maybe it's better than a long-term lease, right? So maybe for whatever reason, they may value this more. Yield better hoti hai kuch instances mein they just don't want to give for long-term lease and they want to kind of do this. A lot of people have vacation homes, so people may in Bombay have a home in Alibag, people may have a home in Goa. So suddenly now there is an opportunity for people to monetize their underutilized assets. This is what sharing economy has done. So one piece is the whole transaction bit of it, that there is an opportunity to earn money out of this. The other is a lot of people don't do this for money. A lot of people do this for the connection, right? So a lot of people, for example, one of the fastest growing categories of our hosts in India and abroad is empty nesters. So people who are like senior citizens, 50s, 60s, their kids may have moved to a different city, right? Maybe they're staying abroad or they went on to study abroad and they're settled there. You have these big homes. The parents are alone, right? They're missing the connection and they have these 2-3 rooms. They don't need the money. They do not depend on this income to kind of run their home or anything, right? They just do it to meet new people, to be busy and kind of bring people into their communities and share their life's experiences. All of this coming together basically means more people are wanting to stay in these places and other people are using this as an opportunity to fulfill any of these criteria, earn their primary income, earn secondary income that kind of pays for their hobbies. I know so many hosts in India who started hosting so that they could earn money to pursue a photography course, to pursue a music course, right? The fact is, this is added income using an underutilized asset, right? And it's finding favor in terms of people because they're getting a lot of benefits because they want to move towards a more authentic kind of an experience, right? And so these two things coming together are creating that wave where more people want to do this. And I think it's good news because at the end of the day, the more livelihood opportunities you create or the more social opportunities you create, the impact is very good, right? So that has happened. Now, as I said, India is also very entrepreneurial, right? So a lot of people have figured out that this is a great business idea also, right? Because many people in India have these secondary homes, but they don't want to get into the hassle of hosting, right? They don't have the time because that's, they might be busy with their businesses or anything else. So they don't want to do the check-in, check-out. They don't want to manage the place on portals like Airbnb. They don't want to do customer service, but they like it as a concept because they have seen it when they travel abroad. And so people have become very creative to create these companies, which we call as property managers. Now, some of them are bigger brands also, right? They have their own presence. A lot of them list on Airbnb as well. And so smart young entrepreneurs found this as an opportunity and said, if I can do this for my primary home or my friend's primary home or secondary home, let me scale this, right? And now that's the reason somebody could have started with 1 or 2 homes is now managing 10, 20, right? And maybe more, right? In places like Goa and others. They are bringing what you call as more structure to that, right? But still, if you look at Airbnb today, globally or even in India, the core of the business is people like you and me sharing their primary homes or secondary homes and doing this, right?
I want to go deeper in the business side of it because I'm super interested. So give me, let's break down numbers if on a hypothetical situation, right? Let's say this is a place, this is the location, this is a prime location in Bombay. That's a 5 BHK, right? So how much an average person can make out of this?
So again, depends on how many days you open it for, right? So a lot of people open it for 30
days. This is my extra home, and this is my secondary home. For 30 days, I have to open. Out of 30 days, on an average, how many days is booked through Airbnb?
Sure. It would vary, again, location by location, type of home and the pricing of it. So what we do at Airbnb, we let the host decide the price. We'll give you all the indications and the tools for you to price it in the most optimal manner.
Can we pick up like a...
So I would not get into specifics, but I'll give you a hypothetical figure, right? So typically, for example, somebody has a villa in Goa, right?
Okay.
Goa is a vacation rental market, so in North Goa, for example, right? We have seen people price it a 3-bedroom villa at anywhere between 15 to 18,000 in a normal off-season period.
Okay.
Right? And they would provide anything like on-call chef, so that, if you want to get something cooked, you can get it done. And 3 good bedrooms with like a pool access within the villa.
Or like a service
apartment. Or within the community, there is a shared pool also, or you might have a small plunge pool in the villa.
Got it.
That goes for anywhere between 18 to 20,000 per night, right? Depending on the location and depending on, there could be a 3-bedroom villa which is 50,000 also. So there is an Airbnb at every price point. But that's what is a sweet spot,
15
right?
to 20,000.
15 20. During a very strong season like New Year's, this could be as high as 40-50,000. And think of this as, a 60% occupancy, 60-65% occupancy at any point of time in a month. Because what happens is a lot of times the host wants to come and stay themselves there. So they don't make the villa available, or they are giving it to a friend of them or a relative of them, because they are all still a social community, right? So maybe for whatever reason, the villa is not available to be rented out for those days. But we have seen in certain markets, the occupancy levels going very high in seasonal periods. And that is what is attracting a lot of people, right? So a lot of people earn much more than what they would earn in a year-long rental deal.
Exactly.
Right?
Even 60% if you're saying like at a 15-20,000, let's say pick up 20,000, give like 15 days off. Yeah. It's like a 3 lakh rupees.
But obviously there are costs associated with it as well, right?
Yeah, so let's say 1 lakh is out.
Yeah.
So still 2 lakh is a good rental yield in North Goa because
yes,
because when you look at Bombay, Bangalore or Delhi, it's like a prime markets. On an average, like 8 crore, 9 crore property would get like a 2 lakh, 2.5 lakh.
Exactly.
Right? So rental yield is like super low.
So I think it depends on location. It depends on what you're bringing in terms of an offer, in terms of experiences. And we have seen people build multi-crore businesses in terms of, doing this. And we've seen casual hosts, people like you and me, earning primary income through this and making ends meet. We have seen people who do this like 5 days in a month, using the money for secondary income, right? So again, the objective may vary, but I think we are making it easy for all kinds of hosts to come onto the platform and kind of list.
Nice. And then, okay, what are the top locations in India which are actually making good returns on Airbnb?
So from an Airbnb business perspective, right? Some of the best hotspots for us have been Goa. No surprise, the periphery around Mumbai, Alibag, and other places, Lonavala, Gujarat, and all of those. Northern hills, so Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, they've kind of found favor. But we've started seeing some trends in the last, 1 year or so, right? Places that are off the beaten path, right? So people want to explore those more. So places like Jibi in Himachal Pradesh, Varkala, right? And because these places don't have, traditional forms of hotels or hospital, kind of those options, a lot of people want to experience this by staying with communities. In fact, we did a survey. Us survey mein ye nikal ke aaya that about 79% of the people today, when they make a travel decision, they want to keep that in mind, that this decision of theirs, how would it impact the community? What kind of a positive impact can they bring in the place that they visit, in the people that they would go and, experience time with? And that has led to a new revolution, which is more like community-based travel coming onto the forefront. More responsible. So the rise of a responsible traveler is something that we're seeing. People are now choosing places to stay based on the sustainable practices that the hosts are saying. They're saying, acha, this place, this host uses renewable energy. This place uses the local produce. This place employs the local people. I want to go stay there, right? And I think that is something that is a trend that we've seen grow in the past few years, and it will continue to grow. And so as people start making responsible choices, newer places are seeing first bookings. So there were many, maybe 50, 60 new cities that saw their first ever booking on Airbnb during the pandemic, and so as people get access to the smartphone, it makes it easy for them.
Tell me one interesting fact which I keep asking everybody, and I am very curious to know this. Like, we love learning from America, China, UK, from like the best of the world, right? What have you seen? How are Indian travelers different from American travelers?
Good question. Great question. I think a couple of things. One, and the behavior differs, right? So Indians are also very curious now to explore the world. So if you look at it, over the last decade or so, the Indian traveler or the consumer is far more confident, right? Today they want to be want to experience the same things that their global counterparts have been doing. Obviously, internet penetration has created more awareness. So today, a millennial Indian from an urban city wants to do the same thing in terms of what an American millennial would want to do and go and see in Paris, for example, right?
Okay.
So I think that one thing the global exposure has done, that curiosity has increased. So a lot of people want to travel, a lot of people want to kind of experience new things. So that is clearly one trait which is similar, right? I think what a lot of Indians now I see is that some of the traits are always there. The value for money trait will always be there, right? So even the most affluent Indian travelers will also look for the most efficient, kind of value from a money perspective deal. So a lot of people want to see what do they get for what the money that they're trying to spend, right? So we see for sure a lot of people asking more questions, right? From an India perspective, what do I get, this and everything else. So I think that is something which is very India centric, right? The other thing that I've seen is earlier, a lot of Indians would travel in groups, right? So 2-3 friends coming together, but that is changing now. Solo travel, as I said, is on the rise. So a lot of people are far more conscious to kind of, go out there, do not even plan. The lead time between earlier, we used to have a longer lead time between when people book and when they stay. So that tells you a lot of planning has gone in, etc. These days, it's like tonight we book and day after tomorrow we are traveling, right? So spontaneity is also something that we have seen that has come in. And I think a lot of people see these unique places, तो उनको लगता है हमें जाना है, इसको तो experience करना है. Whether it's in India, whether it's outside India as well. So that's there. But I think overall, the whole focus on sustainable travel, that's something that I've seen rise multifold in India. So the choices people making in terms of, reading where is the electricity coming from? What kind of, products are being used? Are sustainable practices being employed? What is the impact on community? That for me is a very different trait that I've seen from an Indian user perspective.
Interesting. What are your top 3 places in India on Airbnb?
In terms of number of listings or for bookings?
3 places which you feel are really good, everybody should check out. Like from a property point of view.
From a property point of view. So
3 in India and 3 abroad.
3 in India. So it's like very difficult to kind of
but
say
there
that.
are lists on Airbnb. Like there's whole content going on Google.
So a lot of people create content based on their needs. But I'll tell you where I am going to, right? So I am going for a summer holiday with my family. And it's the first time we're going to UK, a place called Isle of Skye. So I have an interest in single malt. So I just want to go visit a few distilleries there, right? And so making a road trip. Literally staying in a cabin, which is on the lake. And literally 2 kilometer idhar or is side pe, there is no house. So it's in the middle of nowhere, great views of the lake, gives you the isolation, but you're still somewhere, where you can kind of connect, go get food and etc. So I'm just going there to kind of, disconnect and kind of experience Isle of Skye in the most natural way. So I'm really looking forward to that cabin stay of mine. The other places I think in India, which are on my kind of wish list. One is a tree house in a place called Jibi, right? Now, this is a beautiful tree house in literally a village area. The host is a farmer. It's literally sold at 6,000 rupees a night, right? The problem with that place is it's always booked, right? So to get calendar open for it is very difficult. So I'm just waiting for that right opportunity to kind of book that. But so just imagine tree house, surrounded by beautiful views, the mist coming in the evening or, early morning, and literally you are in the middle of nature. This kind of an experience you cannot get in like a traditional hospitality or a hotel at all. So I have this tendency to kind of go towards these unique stays. The other one that, I've put on my wish list is a mud house in Munnar. Again, mud house. So it's primarily made from ecological things. And again, in the middle of nature, experience slow living, kind of, see the beautiful Sayadaris around you. And it's close to a wildlife sanctuary also. So very close to nature. Again, a place which would be difficult to find in a traditional way, right? So those have been something that I really want to go and visit in India. Abroad, I've had so many beautiful experiences, right? I still remember the entire family went to Santorini, right? And our villa had a private beach. Right, so Pebble Street Beach, again, full access, I still remember it was a very hot day when we were just coming in from the ferry, kind of dock to the place. And the host was literally standing with a tray of freshly squeezed cold orange juice to welcome the entire family. And I think that kind of sets the tone in terms of, hospitality plus breathtaking views and great places to. It was literally a cave house, but amazing. So that has been one of the, beautiful experiences I've had. In fact, so many things on the wish list. So one thing that Airbnb did was, again, revolutionize the way people search for places. So typically, if you look at OTAs, they would say, where do you want to go? So you put in the city name and then they will say, how many people, what kind of stay. If you fire up the Airbnb app today, and I'm sure you're a user, you would have seen, we literally ask what kind of a stay you want, right? So there are categories now built in. So if you are a nature lover, you want to stay in a cabin or you want to stay in an A-frame, right? Or a mud house, those are categories available. So you click on cabin, it'll show you cabins across multiple locations. People choose where they want to go based on the stay that they see now, right? And I think that's a very powerful way to move people away from maybe the top 10 cities that come to mind when everyone wants to travel. So today, if somebody's going to Paris, but they are interested in wines and vineyards, they can literally go stay in the middle of one. And that is possible because the discovery is easily happening on the categories part, right? And so there are golf retreats, there are cabins, there are, boats, and then pool villas, heritage cities. So based on your interests, choose the category, see the beautiful places that are very unique. In fact, one of the categories is called OMG, which basically means, very unique kind of stays that are on the platform. So there are homes in the shape of a guitar, homes in the shape of, fruits. There are bamboo huts, which are one of the most wish-listed places in Bali. So I also manage Southeast Asia, Hong Kong and Taiwan. And if you look at Southeast Asia, market is one of the biggest tourism markets, like countries like Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and some of the best villas are there on the platform, right? So one of the homes is like a bamboo home with beautiful plunge pools, etc., which is one of the most wish listed properties globally on Airbnb. So a lot of people want to go there. Obviously, there are only 365 days a year, so they have to find the right opportunity. But I think what makes our platform unique is the fact that there are a lot of these unique kind of stays coupled with experiences, but then you will find a home to stay in for as little as 1,000 rupees also. So there is an Airbnb at every price point for every need, which kind of makes it very, very appealing.
But now that I'm your friend, how easily can I get the bamboo one? It sounded super fascinating.
Join the wait list the way I am on the wait list, right? We are an open platform, so it's out there.
Come on, I need some perks. Come on, we need some perks.
No, for sure.
Some advanced nudge.
What I will do is I'll start by sharing the wish list with you, the beautiful places that are being wish listed most of the times, and then I'm sure we can pick something.
No, I'm just messing around. So one of the really cool things which caught my eye recently, that the Palace of King in Jaipur, was listed on Airbnb or is still listed.
It was listed, for almost a year and a half.
So you could stay a night in a palace of a king. Like, what was it? Tell me, how did that happen and what was the thing?
So this was one of the most unique, campaigns that we did. And again, in the spirit of creating once in a lifetime experiences, so we have a franchise, what we call as only on Airbnb. So this is basically an experience that money cannot buy otherwise, right? Or something that you've not seen anywhere before. And we like to bring these unique places on the platform. And when we thought about India, we thought one of the rich legacies of India is our heritage, right? And we have so many palaces, heritage homes. And many of them have been converted into hotels, if you see. So today you can go into an erstwhile palace, which is now a property managed by one of the biggies. But again, it's not the most authentic experience. So we said, what if we were to go to an actual, place of stay for the royal family, the way it is, and convince them to kind of put it on Airbnb so that people could have a very authentic experience. We zeroed down on the city palace, again, something people could go see, but never stay because it's the official residence of Princess Diya Kumari and the Prince of Jaipur, right? And so we discussed with them and we discussed the idea of what would it be like for someone to experience this royalty, and the way you live and this experience and kind of learn about the legacy, the history, the cultural diversity that Jaipur has to offer. And, we were able to kind of get to a a place where they got super interested because they also want to share the story, right? In terms of, and again, a very welcoming family in terms of, wanting to share this with the rest of the world. And we zeroed down on their main residence, which is the City Palace, and we figured out a room which they put it on Airbnb. It's called the Goodlia Suite, and it was available as an experience on the platform. And I think people from all across the world have come and stayed there, written about it, and I think it is one of the most charismatic and majestic experiences. But I think what makes it unique is the fact that you just don't stay in the palace. From the time you enter the palace to the evening tea that you have in one of the places which is called Hawa Mahal there, right? And then learn more about the place there and the history around that. All of this comes together to make it the most magical experience, right? So, they were the first royal hosts on the platform in India. And it was one of the most booked, wish-listed experiences that we have had on Airbnb in the recent past.
I want to know, how was your interview with the founder of Airbnb? And like, how did it go? Like, what was the one question you felt like, oh, ye kya pucha? Like, tell me the whole process. So, how did you get hired? Like, what did they ask you in an interview?
I ended up speaking to almost 20 people. Okay. In India, in Singapore, which was the regional office, and then in San Francisco, where Airbnb is based out of. When I went through the process in India, it was good. Okay, baat karte hain. Singapore was also great. I met some very intelligent folks, amazing people that were managing the business there, stalwarts in their industry. And I thought, okay, this is good. Let's go. And finally, I went to San Francisco. And I think that is where it really hit me, like the importance of culture. So when I entered the office, that place had a very different vibe to what I had seen in anywhere in the world. I've been to traditional companies in my consulting days. I'd built a startup in India. I'd seen other startups in India growing. But this is where I saw one thing, which was that everybody was coming to work with full enthusiasm, working towards a single mission, that we have to make this work. And they all believed that connection, belonging is their play, and this can only be achieved through a platform like Airbnb. So that collective energy that was there in every nook and corner of the office was infectious. It was contagious. It just attracted you. And I think I would say that is one of the key things that attract a lot of people at that point of time also, and even now, to come and work for companies like Airbnb. Purpose-driven brands where everyone is aligned towards that one single purpose. And I think it's very difficult to achieve that at scale. And I think that was there. I still remember I met with people from across different domains, obviously functional experts, regional players. But then obviously I had an interview with Joe, who's one of the co-founders, and Brian. And I think with Brian, the interview was very clear, right? He wanted to know more about my entrepreneurial journey because that's the one area we could connect.
Yeah.
And the other thing that he wanted to know was India is such a community-oriented play. What can we do to bring a difference, right? And so we exchanged a lot of ideas around how could Airbnb add value. And Ryan is also very focused on, the purpose of the brand, the mission of the brand. And I think so that was one key engagement or key interaction that I had. With Joe, again, on similar lines, there was a lot of focus on people, culture, importance of kind of nurturing, trust. And I think trust is a very key aspect when it comes to a business like Airbnb, because whatever we do at the core of it is how do we build trust, right? And we'll talk more about
core
that.
Of it, yeah.
And so we talked about, okay, how do you build trust in an environment like India, or what are some of the cultural nuances that are important? But I think the thing that kind of stands out for me in that interview was his last question. Right. So everything was done. It was late evening in San Francisco, I remember. So he said, okay, I have only one more last question. And I said, okay, yeah. He said, on a scale of 0 to 10, how lucky do you feel today? And you've been talking about the business, you've been talking about community, we've been talking about people, and suddenly this question comes in and you're like, okay, you have to think like, what is this? And I think the best answers are that come spontaneously to you. And my answer that was like, I feel very lucky. I would not even put it on a scale, because he said, why? And I said, you know what? I've had a great day. I've met some of the most amazing folks. I've spoken about one thing that is very close to my heart, and that is India, right? The passion to kind of be part of the India story, the passion to bring change to India. And we have done it with e-commerce in the past. The passion to do something, where in the next 20, 30 years, the things that we do today, we define the growth and the trajectory of the country. And I've been able to discuss and share that story out with such a large audience, right? That for me is a great opportunity. And I think that question is something now that I used to ask a lot of people who come for interviews, at Airbnb India. And even when I'm talking to other I also angel invest in some capacity. So I want to be associated with the entrepreneurial ecosystem in India as well. I like to ask that because it tells you a lot about the mindset of the person that is there. Like, how lucky does that person feel to be there, right there at that moment, just experiencing what they've just experienced. And I think that I thought was a great question for someone to ask.
All right. Just ask 2 questions I want to ask you. Is both on the job side of the Airbnb and stuff. Tell me, what are the 3 qualities you look at when you hire a new person? Or like, what do you look at somebody who's in the organization for a young person? What do you feel are the 3 qualities which makes them stand out?
Yeah.
And you feel, okay, this person can be a leader tomorrow. Like what? There's so many people who start as management trainees, who start as interns.
Yeah.
What gives you, like, I'm sure you're always thinking about, oh, I want to develop this person as a leader. I want to do this thing with this one.
Yeah.
What do you look at in people?
So I think, one is, the way I look at it is, so this is a very important topic for me, because I'm a strong believer that you have to back people, right? Even when they fail, it's just that they may have failed at a particular instance. But in the end, everyone wants to bring their best, in the forefront, and they want it to be nurtured. So I'm a firm believer of backing people, giving them opportunity, helping them kind of, get to the next level. But I think a great question is like, what do you look for? The top 3 traits for me, and again, depending on what role you're hiring for, number 1 is the curiosity to learn. Right? A lot of people come with a lot of baggage saying that I've done this and I've done that, right? But the fact that, say in an interview, the last 15 minutes I give to the person to ask me questions. And I think for me, that's a great test, because then that is a time when I get to understand what makes this person curious. What do they want to learn? They have an opportunity to understand the business from a different angle. So what is their question? And I think people who exhibit curiosity to learn, they also do a lot of homework before they even ask these questions, is something that goes very well for me, because our business is so dynamic, or any business is so dynamic, that it will change. And if a person exhibits the style in terms of, always A, ability to adapt, and B, to learn more, is something that will always be one who will be successful, in my opinion, right? So that is important. The other is the association in terms of the purpose of the company. A lot of people may get attracted to working for companies like Airbnb and others for the dollar signs around the company, or just the fact that they'll be able to work on the next biggest tech disruption or anything, right? But after a while, they will lose the steam, right? If it was only in it for that. So do they align with the company's mission? Do they really believe in what we want to create, from a overall purpose perspective? So I think that for me is also something that is important. And I think the third piece is, what have they done in the past that makes them unique, right? So a lot of people, I love to kind of hear stories in terms of obviously they all talk in their resumes about what they achieved, this program, these many cost savings, or, this kind of a revenue plot. But one of the key questions I ask is, what makes you unique to, in your own way? And what is the unique thing that you bring on the table for us, right? And I think those answers tell a lot about people's character, as well as, the fact in terms of the hunger that they have to kind of make a difference. And I think a combination of these 3, you will never get it right all the time, but I think you always learn with each.
Keep doing this stuff. Okay, the last question, I have it in my mind since the time you walked in, or since the time we thought of actually getting you on board, is like, you have built a startup here, and you worked at a startup which originally started from Silicon Valley. So you have tried to balance between both the ethos, right? What are the top things which we can learn from a US-based startup, and you can give that as an advice to Indian startup owners right now? Because if you look at the percentage of startups which start, scale, fail, or succeed are at a much faster rate in US versus India. Even though there are so many successful startups here, but it took them time. Right? In US, it's much faster. The curve is much faster. I mean, now India is seeing the stories of Zepto and people, right? Which is like on a blitz scale model. But everything else, it takes time. So what would be your advice? Because you've been there from 10 to 300, like in just 1 year.
So I think a couple of things. One is the advice to founders or, operators here that I would give is that, pay importance to culture from very early days of the startup, right? Because as I said, it is something that is very difficult to kind of change, pivot, or kind of build at a later stage of the company.
Do you feel US में ज़्यादा
US,
importance
a
देते हैं day
lot
one
of
पे?
people see again, if you're building a company when you know that you have to sell it after 1 year, don't bother. Right, then talk about growth, revenue, and then kind of sell. But I'm sure many founders don't build companies for only 1 year or 2 years or with the aim of selling. They want to build a legacy, they want to create a mark, right? And so people is what will enable it. So putting more focus on culture from day one is very important. And I think this is where the core values of the company, the shared vision, the founder's mentality, not only being restricted to like 5-10 people, but then, kind of percolating down to the way things are done on a daily basis across is very important. The issue with culture is that it is not something that you can easily report on, right? It's not a metrics in terms of you've seen 2x growth, 3x growth, right? And so at times it kind of loses steam. But I've seen the companies that stand out is because of the people and the way things have taken place. And Airbnb is a great example of that. And so I would say, pay attention to that. Find your unique, what you call differentiator. What does the company stand for? And how can people kind of come together to make that happen is going to be very important. See, people obviously join brands and products, but I think a lot of millennials today and the workforce of the future is millennial led, right? The workforce of the future is very different from the workforce of the past. They would value purpose driven brands more. So have purpose in terms of the why matters the most in terms of what you're doing, right? And I think that is one key advice. The other thing I think is more from an ecosystem perspective. What I've seen in the US is, because maybe the system has evolved and matured there, but there is a lot of help or mutual help available for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? So people can easily get access to anybody, whether it's a VC, whether it is a seasoned product manager, a seasoned founder, a failed founder, whatever. In that part of the world, if you go and reach out to people, they will spend time with you, whether it's 10 minutes, whether 1 hour or not. I think that is something that India could really benefit from. So creating an ecosystem, and I think it's already happening. The good thing is, the first time founders who've been successful now are giving back to the community, whether it's through content, whether it's through, mentorship. But I think if we do more of that, a lot of people will benefit.
It's also difficult to do that in India because from a point of view, we already have a lot of community responsibilities, which in Western counterparts, the other people don't have. That's why they have like a lot of time to spend to give it to people. Let's say you and me, right?
Yeah.
When we make money, now we want to give back to our parents are involved in some society. You are involved. We all are very religious. We're spiritual. We have our zones of already spending time with, right?
That's true.
In Western world, they're not. That's why they kind of spend time with their younger folks and be like, oh, मैं खुद को इसमें देखता हूँ तो मैं इसको support करता हूँ, help करता हूँ.
Yeah, but I think what it's done is that it's evolved the ecosystem much faster there, right? So maybe a conscious effort by a few more people in our system would help. And I'm already seeing that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of founders reach out to kind of understand. They want to learn from the Airbnb experience I've had. But I think we can do more as a community there. I think that will be very helpful. The other thing is just the, celebrating failure. What I've seen is, at times there is a stigma attached to it in India, right? Unless you achieve the next fundraise, unless you are seen as a unicorn or a unicorn, right? I think we have to celebrate failure. It's okay, people try and move on, right? And so that will create a much more sense of security within this ecosystem, which is there, right? And I think the other thing is not all startups have to be on the headlines. Not all, like somebody creating a small business of 10 people, bringing impact in a small, city is also success.
Yeah.
So I think celebrating that success also is very important, right? At times we get only attracted by headlines. Somebody's raised a $200 million round. It's now valued at X billion dollars. And this is the next big thing, right? But the fact that people picking up problems, solving for that, is very important, right?
Yeah.
One more thing, which is not very founder thing, but I think kind of touches the whole piece that I'll add here is, what I've seen back in working with a Silicon Valley firm is that you may not be a founder yourself, but you bring the founder mentality or the entrepreneurial mindset to what you do at work, right? So you might have a product manager, or you might have an operations manager, or you might have even a customer support, executive. But in their mind, they are the entrepreneurs and they are like owners of their own play. And I think that ownership mindset, if we start bringing in in our world as well, you know, not everyone can start a company by themselves, right? And sometimes they're not built for it, right? Or they don't want to take the risk. But what they can bring is the entrepreneurial mindset into play, which is basically, if you were to just say, it's a function of curiosity, being creative, being scrappy in finding solutions, you know, being ready for change. A lot of times, a lot of people kind of break down because something just changed. But an entrepreneurial mindset will prepare them for embracing change. So even as employees today, you know, you're seeing layoffs happening, you're seeing companies changing business models, you're seeing companies changing focus, right? Based on so many things that are dynamic in nature. I think the way India is going, a lot of people may not be able to open their own companies or startups or anything. But if they bring this entrepreneurial mindset, you know, on the table, it will benefit in their corporate careers as well. And I think I've seen that play out very well in US and in other countries. But I do believe that, you know, we need to make more of those cases public. People should be able to learn even that skill. So it's not just how to start a company, but it's also how to operate as an entrepreneur, even when you're working in a very different zone.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for giving all these bits and bits about so many different things. Now I have to recollect so many things because you literally spoke about so many stuff. Thank you so much for watching today's show. I'm really grateful that you're watching this episode till now, because every view, every second that you watch and you invest in us, it makes us better. And to help us get even better, I would request you to please comment and let us know whether you want to see the kind of guest that you saw today. And if not, let us know in the comments who's the next guest that you want to watch, what are the questions that you want us to ask, so that we can serve you better and help you become a better leader for tomorrow. And before you leave, you know, like, subscribe, comment, and share it with at least one person who can learn from this conversation. Because one conversation can get you so many ideas. And even out of hundreds of ideas that you get from one conversation, if you stand on just one, that one idea, if you can implement, it will help you become a better leader and help you achieve your Indian dream much faster. Thank you so much. Until the next episode, keep figuring out.